Every year I'm re-amazed at the proportion of kids that are not meeting even the minimum physical activity guidelines. One hopes each year that it's going to, start to climb in a noticeable way, and it just doesn't seem to happen. And as we focus on in this year's report card, we really believe it's because kids are spending far too much time indoors. That's constraining the possibility of making significant gains in terms of children's physical activity levels. When you're indoors compared to outdoors, you sit more and you move less. And the reality is that most of kids' discretionary time, almost all their discretionary time, is spent indoors, mostly in front of screens. And so that just leaves very little possibility for a substantial increase in physical activity, at least as it relates to unstructured active play. The structured stuff where mom or dad drive you to a practice or a recital or these sorts of things are still there. But what has changed, I think, over time is this loss of the unstructured, incidental, active play that used to be what people did in most of their discretionary time. So we need to break open the doors. We need to allow that to happen and get kids outdoors. When you get outdoors, movement naturally breaks out. I think the message this year is good news to parents. We're not asking you to do anything except let your kids have a childhood like you had. Let your kids get outside and play. We're not recommending you sign them up for anything else. We're not recommending that you spend all of your discretionary time playing with them. Lord knows our parents didn't do that with us, and we turned out just okay, So open the doors. Let your kids go in the yard, in the park, in the neighborhood. Do whatever street proofing with them that you need to allow yourself to relax enough to allow your kids to just go outside and play. Parents, educate yourself. And so look at the report card, look at the position statement that's in the report card, so you're aware of what the facts are. Because there's this misguided belief, widespread misguided belief, that keeping kids indoors is keeping them safe. And I believe we provide compelling evidence in this year's ParticpACTION report card that keeping kids indoors almost certainly increases risk, not decreases risk, it increases risk. It increases risk through a whole variety of things. Some of the key ones that parents are concerned about is stranger danger. Oh, if I let my kid play outside, some stranger's going to grab them and take them away from me. That almost never, ever happens, and we provide statistics for that. The likelihood is approximately 1 in 14 million. So far stranger things are much more likely to happen. However, roughly 500 times the risk is that a child will meet a cyber predator that will try and seduce them into some sort of confrontation, some sort of meeting, and so on. And everyone seems to be okay with that. Their kids on their computer in the room where it's nice and safe. Well, think about it, Depending on how you examine the statistics, it may be 500 times riskier for you, not to mention what else they might be doing on the computer. Of course, indoors, they're sitting. We know that's bad for you. They're likely eating, even in the absence of hunger. We know that's bad for you. Neither of those things happen outside. They'll be moving. They won't likely be eating. Outside, they'll be breathing fresh air. Inside, they're breathing stale, stagnant, and contaminated air from all of the fire retardants and different things that our furniture and our carpets and so on have. That evidence is quite clear. The amount of likelihood of social interaction inside, other than digital, is unlikely. Outside, it's quite likely. The connection with nature inside is unlikely. Outside is quite likely. And the list goes on and on and on. There is almost no redeeming feature of staying inside, and there are almost all the redeeming features of being outside. And if people buy into that, like every other generation before us did, then the outdoors becomes even more safe because there are more eyes on the street, there are more kids on the street, there are more things going on in the street, it's more enticing to be there. We need some sort of recalibration with these scary monsters that are outside and all of these phantoms that are there, they're simply not there. And we're doing our kids a disservice. We're doing their health, their development a disservice. Outdoors, they're more likely to develop positive self-esteem. They're more likely to develop decision-making skills. They're more likely to develop self-regulatory skills. And most importantly, they're most likely to develop resilience, which is fundamental to their mental and physical well-being going forward.
9% of 15 to 17-year-old Canadian children get the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity per day. That's a grade of D- overall for physical activity, which has remained unchanged in 3 straight years. What concerns you the most, and how discouraged are you by this stagnant trend?
Well, yeah, I'm very discouraged. This is what we, the collective group that works on the report card and helps support programs to help improve the grade. Of course, we're very discouraged by this. But the data are what they are, and they're quite strong. They're from very trustworthy data sources, from good measurements and so on. So they are what they are. Last year in the report card, we showed that when we compare ourselves to other countries around the world, we're near the bottom. When we have similar sorts of measures across the way, so we have a lot of room for improvement. And so we can't just tweak things a little bit. Well, maybe we'll just sign them up for one more organized sport. It's not about that. It's much more fundamental. And that's why this year we're focusing on what I believe to be the true answer to the problem. That all of our discretionary time, the time that's in between all the things, the after school time, the Saturday times when we're not at organized sports, and Sunday times when we're not at organized sports, just get outside and play. But we've got to allow our kids the room to move. We have to let them explore and do things. It can't always be, well, don't do that, or that's too high, or that's too fast, or that's too dark, or that's too far. And so in that regard, we need to recalibrate ourselves. We need to wean ourselves off of the overprotectionism that has somehow emerged through sensationalized news stories and so on. And I can't discount the fact that horrible things happen. They happen very, very rarely. And your child will be less and less prepared for such a circumstance if you never, ever give them a chance to experience it.